Welcome to the Scary Spirits Podcast. Please be advised that the presenters may use adult language and/or discuss adult situations. This podcast is not intended for younger listeners or those that may be easily offended. So, if you're ready, let's go.
Hi, I'm Greg.
Hey, I'm Karen.
And welcome to a very special episode of the Scary Spirits Podcast. Scary Spirits Reviews featuring the film Renfield.
Ooh.
Are you excited for our first new film review show, Karen?
I am. Are you?
Oh, absolutely. So as I said, the film we are reviewing is the film Renfield, released April 14th, 2023. And I know we are a little late in the game. We know that. We should have already done this. But, you know, life and such.
I was going to say life.
All right, Karen. So I saw it on a Sunday. So I saw it last Sunday. You saw it when? Tuesday, you said? So a couple days after I did.
Yeah.
My wife and I went and saw it at a matinee, of course, Karen, because we're old. And we were two of the 8 people in the theater. How was your experience?
I went with my 16-year-old son, and we were 2 of the 4 people in the theater. But it was a Tuesday afternoon. It wasn't the earliest show because he had to get out of school. I did not take him out of school to see the movie.
Let's start with previews, Karen. Did you see the previews? You couldn't miss them, I'm sure, unless you got there late.
We missed some.
Okay. Any films in the previews that stood out to you?
Well, there was the Demeter. What is that one?
Mm-hmm. Last Voyage of the Demeter. Did you see the preview for the Haunted Mansion movie, the Disney Haunted Mansion movie? That was an earlier one because it was approved for all audiences. Did you have previews with a red screen and there was cursing and F-bombs in the previews?
Yes.
See, that's the first time I've ever seen that. So either that's a new thing or I don't go to see our movies very much in the theater. And I haven't in quite a while, probably since pre-COVID.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so the Haunted Mansion, I was intrigued by that. And it's scheduled to come out July 28th of 2023.
Is it live action or?
It is.
Oh, so it's not animated.
No. And Last Voyage of the Demeter is scheduled to come out August 11th, 2023. And if you don't know what the Demeter is, right, that is the cargo ship that brought Dracula from, where was he?
The Carpathian Mountains.
Yeah, brought him from the Carpathian Mountains to
Romania, I think.
Yeah, to England, right?
Yes. Although from the preview, it seems like it could be a pretty short movie. There's just a lot of cast and crew, like how many people can be on a boat.
And we know what happens because we've seen Dracula. So it basically, I guess you could say, tells a story of a chapter in Bram Stoker's Dracula.
And maybe they'll change it.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. I'm sure it's a retelling, reimagining, I would assume. It's described as a American supernatural horror film based on the chapter, The Captain's Log, from the 1897 novel Dracula by Bram Stoker. I really want to see that one.
It looks scary.
Yes, looks good. All right, Karen. As I said, it was released April 14th, 2023. But I do have some box office numbers. The total worldwide box office so far, and we should say we are recording this April 27th, 2023. Worldwide box office to date is almost $19 million. Not bad. 14.5 of which is the domestic box office. So it's only done about 4.5 million internationally, roughly. Its opening week, it did just over $8 million. So its opening weekend, it did 55% of its total gross so far. Its opening weekend, it was ranked number 4 for that weekend. And then its second weekend, which is when I saw it, Karen, last weekend, it was number 8. And then it dropped from 8 million to 3.2 million. So a decline of 59%. I can't really compare that to other films, but that sounds like a big drop to me, Karen.
It does.
Rotten Tomatoes has it on its tomato meter at 57% approval. I think that's
critics?
I think that's from critics. But its audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is 79% approval rating.
That's pretty good.
Metacritic, its critics have it at 53% approval. And then the users of Metacritic, very similar to audience score and Rotten Tomatoes, I assume, give it a 6.7 out of 10.
A little lower.
IMDb, people who rate it there also rate it 6.7 out of 10. Google ratings, I found, audience rate it at 3.9 out of 5. So almost a 4 out of 5. Almost. Just couldn't get over that hump. It's pretty good.
But in the end, other people's opinions and critics' opinions don't really matter. It's up to you if you like it or not. I've seen movies that critics
You mean
have
me,
panned.
Karen? It's up to me? Is that what you're saying?
It's up to the listener, the watcher of the movie. I mean,
Yes.
I'm sure you've seen movies that critics have panned and thought they were awesome, and seen movies that critics loved and you thought were pretty bad.
Yeah. If there's a film I want to see, I purposely do not read any critics, or I try to avoid all information about it completely.
Well, yeah, so it doesn't get ruined.
I pretty much avoided seeing or reading anything about this.
I did too, which might leave me woefully unprepared for this review, but we'll see. It's my opinion, though. Isn't that what a review is my opinion?
Yes.
But I didn't want to be influenced by anyone else's opinions. Would you like to hear a short plot summary?
Sure, Karen, but I'm going to say right now, there will be no spoilers in this review. No spoilers. So unless your plot review is very spoilerish, go ahead.
I don't think it is.
Okay. Go on then. Tell me a story.
Renfield, the tortured aide to his narcissistic boss, Dracula, is forced to procure his master's prey and do his every bidding. However, after centuries of servitude, he's ready to see if there's life outside the shadow of the Prince of Darkness.
Very unspoilerish, I would say.
You're welcome.
I think you would probably get that from looking at the trailer for the most part, right?
Or just knowing who Renfield and Dracula are.
Correct.
I think you would know that. We should say that the film does star Nicolas Cage as Dracula, Nicholas Hoult as Renfield. And if you have seen About a Boy, he was the little boy in that, which is weird when you watch this movie because he's all grown up. Awkwafina is Rebecca, and Ben Schwartz is Tedward Lobo. Brandon Scott Jones is Mark, and I cannot say Shora Agdashlu. Do you know how to say her name? Because I completely butchered it.
Nope.
Bella Francesca Lobo.
All right, Karen, on to our cocktail rating. Let's start with that.
Oh, we're mixing it up. Usually that's at the end. We're giving it all away for free right at the beginning.
Yes. Well, this is a different episode than we've ever done, Karen.
I'm all for it.
It's new and exciting.
I do like new and exciting. So let's go with you first then. What's your cocktail rating?
Well,
without any explanation, just.
Okay. I'm giving it 3 cocktails, Karen.
I agree.
You give it 3 as well?
Yes.
And my wife agrees as well because I asked her.
I have my 16-year-old's review. We'll talk about it in a minute.
So that basically means a 3 out of 5.
Yes.
Typically in our episodes, we rate the movie on how many cocktails it took us to get through it. So the higher the number, the worse the movie. But 3 is middle. So
right. 3's right in the center.
All right, Karen. Let's start with the good things. What did you enjoy about the film, Karen?
Nicolas Cage is one thing but I like Nicolas Cage. So if you don't like Nicolas Cage, you're not going to like it because Nicolas Cage is Dracula, but he's still Nicolas Cage.
But he's not the lead. in the film,
No,
really.
but I thought he was excellent in it. I thought he looked like he was having a blast. He was campy, but I think that's how it was supposed to be.
Yeah, that's the film.
But he still looked like Nicolas Cage as a vampire. I didn't see him as Dracula. I saw him as Nicolas Cage as a vampire. Nicholas Hoult, who plays Renfield, also excellent, I thought. Although he comes off, if you've ever seen Hugh Grant movies when Hugh Grant was younger, I couldn't stop thinking of Hugh Grant the whole time I was watching him.
That's interesting, Karen.
That's how he plays it.
That may come up later.
Fumbling and I don't know how Hugh Grant is what he acted like, a young Hugh Grant. Awkwafina was good. Ben Schwartz, I don't know him, but I wasn't impressed with his performance. But his mother in the film, who played Bella Francesca Lobo, because I don't want to butcher her name again, was good. And Brandon Scott Jones, who played Mark, who was a little bit of a spoiler, a group leader, was good too, I thought. So I thought the actors were fantastic in it. Do you have a thing that you really liked?
A couple things. I as well enjoyed Nicolas Cage's performance. I especially think he did a really good job of portraying Bela Lugosi.
Yes, that was so awesome at the beginning.
Kind of spoilerish, but at the beginning, it's set up by the 1931 Dracula. Only we're seeing scenes from that film, only the current actors are playing them. So he did a really good job of Bella, and I thought the guy who played the Van Helsing role, although he didn't really say anything, I mean, it looked good, right? So I guess really the directors or whatever did a really good job of recreating the feel of the 1931 film for just the brief, really seconds, probably. But
it's a very brief introduction. You don't get a lot of backstory on
which is something I kind of like. We don't need to know who Dracula is. We don't need a backstory.
We know
just what they did is enough.
Yes, if you've seen this kind of movie and you know who Renfield and Dracula are, but even if you don't need to know for the movie. You know that Dracula is a vampire and Renfield is his servant. Even if you didn't know the story, you don't need to know the story.
Right. I also liked Dracula's fangs.
His teeth, yeah.
His teeth.
His makeup, all the makeup was good.
Yes.
I thought his progression from not so good to full on is really good. Did you think his lair was amazing?
Yeah, I enjoyed the sets.
The sets were great. I liked, and I don't know if you noticed it or not, but the chemistry between Renfield and Rebecca was good.
Was that the Awkwafina chick?
Yeah, Awkwafina and Nicholas Hoult. They played it cool but interesting. You could see it, it would work. So I like their chemistry.
That's all that comes to mind off the top of my head, but what I really liked. It is a comedy, a horror comedy. Sometimes it succeeds, sometimes it does not.
I think there was a good balance. I think they did a good job of balancing it.
I enjoyed the action.
What'd you think of the fight scenes?
I enjoyed them.
Did you think, here's what I thought about the fight scenes.
I laughed and laughed.
I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but it was like a video game. When the fight scenes would start and the gore would ramp up, the whole thing was like a video game.
There was me and one other dude sitting down front who were laughing during the gore scenes.
Well, this is a tiny little spoiler thing, but I have to tell you what my son said at one point because he was prepared, but not quite prepared. Everybody's head is very fragile in the fight scenes. I'm just going to say that right off, but that's not what got him. At one point, he just said really loudly, "Stop using the arms," because they were using.
See, I love that part. That's the part when I laughed and laughed and laughed.
Amputated arms as weapons, and he was just like, "Stop using the arms." It was funny. But so the fight scenes were very gory. I mean,
they were bloody.
And yes, and everyone is very fragile. I know that Renfield is supposed to have super strength and Dracula also, but even the police officer, people were just crumbling and exploding, and heads were exploding, and arms and limbs, and that's not how it happens.
Yeah, another thing I really enjoyed in the storytelling is that they gave Renfield a reason to eat bugs, which I never, in almost every, actually in every version of Dracula we have seen that includes Renfield, he's eating bugs.
Yeah, I think that was just supposed to, like, he was crazy or sort of wanted blood like Dracula,
right.
But didn't.
That's what I assumed as well. But now there's a reason why he eats bugs.
Yes,
is explained in this film, and I had liked that kind of twist, right?
And there is, if you listen to our podcasts in the past, I do like a good sequel potential, and there is
yes,
sequel potential.
There is, as there is in every Dracula film.
Exactly.
He is never, no matter what you do.
Right. So I'm not sure
someone is going to want to bring him back.
I doubt they'll make it, but there is sequel potential, which I always like.
They did do an awful lot to try to kill him, but even the Renfield character narrates over top of a lot of the film throughout the whole thing. And even at the end, he even says, will this kill him? I don't know. We'll see. So there is sequel potential. All right, Karen, let's get to things you did not enjoy. Anything?
It's not that I didn't enjoy it, but it was filmed, supposedly they were in New Orleans. And I wish they'd have used the city more, because there are so many sights and sounds and situations in New Orleans that you could have put in there that would have really made it feel authentic.
See, that's a good point, especially you've traveled there a few times, right?
Yes.
I've never been there. So watching the film, you could have told me it was set anywhere. There was nothing to me that stood out as New Orleans to me.
Well, they do mention Dumont's and the beignets.
Yeah.
So
other than that.
Right. But there are
and the club they were at, it kind of had this like voodoo kind of feel or whatever. But
there are cemeteries and voodoo, and there just seemed like there could have been more they could have tapped into and really made it feel like New Orleans instead of any city, like you said. It should have reeked of it, because it's perfect. It's a perfect place for it. That's just a personal, it's not terrible. It doesn't really affect the film, but I think they could have done more with that, almost as another character.
Yeah, I agree. Not even, like I said, it didn't feel like New Orleans to me.
No, but it should have. That's what I mean. You should have felt it.
What else?
And there's that, Anne Rice had her set there. So there's background and stuff. It seemed thin, like there were some ska jokes and stuff that I didn't quite get.
Yeah, I didn't know what the hell they're talking about.
So I don't know. I missed some of that. The one actor.
It was just funny that they kept that it came up so often is what. Yes. That's one reason I laughed. Like, no, they're talking about it again.
The drug dealer's son. I don't know. I just wasn't impressed with that. I know he was supposed to be a fuck up, not to give too much away, but he just didn't seem like he fit the role very well for me. But I think, mixing in the drugs with Dracula and him trying to figure out a way to come, because in this movie, unlike many others, Dracula doesn't have money, which is an interesting and different approach than usually you have these vampires who have been alive forever, and most often they're very wealthy. But if you think about it, it is interesting that they did choose to portray him this way. If you were a vampire and you had to be alive for centuries, you really have to be able to change with the times. And if you think about how difficult that would be, I mean, when I'm trying to do something new on the computer and I can't do it, or, I don't want to change, you go to the same place for your vacation, you get in habits, and it would be very difficult to change drastically he would have to be able to work computers and things. And
and speaking of that, not to interrupt, but I think now that you mentioned that would have been a good thing to see, in the plot, that here's Dracula in the year 2023, and how is he adapted? Does he know how to do anything?
Well, do any of them? Does Renfield? Because he was still, he got a makeover. True. He was still wearing old English clothes and hadn't combed his hair. What about you? Do you have a thing that you didn't particularly care for?
You mentioned the makeup, and it is good. I think Dracula's makeup, he got better awfully quick. Like, at one point he's recovering, right? At the beginning of the film from
an episode.
And the first time we see him, not counting the flashbacks, he looks pretty bad. And I'm assuming that the episode happened, what?
Oh, that's true.
It 50 years ago?
It has a timeline issue.
Yeah. And then from the first time we see him to the next time we see him, which is like the next fucking day, he looks amazingly better.
Yeah, but Renfield's been bringing him. But you're right.
Does it only take like the 10 people that he brought him that day to be that much better?
It definitely.
And it took 50 years to get to that point? I don't know. So
it is exponential at the end. You're right.
I kind of got the feeling they just wanted to show off their makeup skills for the first time we see Dracula in his bad way. And then
it's good, though.
Yeah, it is good. They probably were like, well, God damn, this took so damn long. Do we want to do this every day? Let's just make him look better now.
Well, or they just need him to be better so he's more powerful and ready to go.
That's true.
Can't wait forever.
And Karen?
Yes, Greg.
Funny, I should mention this. I was going to say I'm far from a prude, I think. I think I pretty much cuss like a sailor. I mean, hell, I just said fuck it a few seconds ago. I think the cursing was over the top. It was too much. It just, after a while, it loses its impact, right? I think.
I didn't even notice it.
Oh my God. I did.
I didn't even notice it.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, it was a little much. A little too much. It didn't need it. I mean, what's it for? Maybe I'm getting old, Karen. Fuck.
Can't be that. Can't be. I'm just sitting here thinking I took my 16-year-old and I didn't even notice it. Great. Mom, getting another Mom of the Year award. Get my gown from the cleaners.
Good parenting, Karen. Good parenting. Also, I said it's a horror comedy. As I said, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And there were quite a few times during the film when I knew that what they were doing was they were trying to be funny, and it was not funny. I didn't think it was funny at all. So, especially a lot between Renfield and the Awkwafina's character, the cop. So,
I probably thought it was funny.
I didn't find it funny at all.
That's what I was talking about, their chemistry. It kind of worked in an awkward kind of way.
It kind of worked. I would agree with that. It kind of worked.
I could see it. It's just, but it was so extreme. And I'm thinking more of the violence that was so extreme and the gore that they just get up from that and walk away like, okay, oh, would you like, in my head, that would never happen. But they pulled it off together, the two of them being able to communicate. But what had happened 2 minutes before, you couldn't just walk away from that as a real person, you would think. But it's almost like a comic book or a video game. The whole movie is like that. That's the feel it got from me. Even the lighting and the sequences and all of it felt like that. Like a scene ends, another scene starts. Like it wasn't abrupt, but it felt like a video game, like you were unlocking levels or something. I don't know.
That's all I can think of that I didn't like. That's all that stands out.
I liked it. Overall, the violence and gore was a little much, but if you look at it...
That was the best part, I thought.
as a video game, or, it almost was so over the top, it didn't affect you.
Correct.
It wasn't realistic. There were a couple that kind of were, But overall, it was just, I mean, I know you were laughing. I didn't find it as comedic, but I didn't find it as, it was more like, oh.
It's funny because it's so it's so like
people's heads don't explode like that.
Yeah, or, but that's what makes it funny.
Or just fly off or what, so, and I know I mentioned that several times, but.
And another thing, I mean, maybe this is a like and a dislike, but, and this might be a little spoilerish, but in this film, Dracula is not, he plays Bela Lugosi in the beginning, but he is not a Bela Lugosi Dracula, right? This Dracula is a killing machine.
He's a Nicolas Cage vampire.
It's not even just sucking the blood from the neck. It's like using your fingernails to slice people open and just murder.
Yes, he doesn't want one person. He wants a busload of cheerleaders or some nuns, or he wants many.
He just wants to kill. He pretty much kills indiscriminately instead of just biting them on the neck and taking their blood. He's
not eating what he kills necessarily.
Correct.
He's just
I get the feeling he's just killing to be killing.
But he also
he's leaving lots of blood on the floor, Karen.
Yes. There's an implication, though, that he wants innocence.
It helps him to recover quicker if the blood is of more innocent people.
Yes,
apparently.
And who he is killing are not innocents.
Well,
mostly.
He just kills indiscriminately. I don't think he cares. Anything else you didn't like? Or anything you liked that you forgot?
Well, I do have a question, though, because he's Dracula. They're calling him Dracula, not a vampire. Yes. And at some point, did they mention the book? Did they make a joke about the book or something? So how do these people, because people are like Dracula, the Dracula. Yes. So how are they knowing him? Because if you know Dracula, you would almost always know Renfield. Or are they knowing Dracula as the Dracula in history or Dracula as the Dracula in the book? Because the book, when he introduces himself as Renfield, why doesn't anybody say, like in the Dracula book? Right. Instead of, but if they only know Dracula as the historical figure,
right,
and not the book, the count that impaled at Vlad the Impaler, then I get it. But a couple of people they reference Dracula and they show the movie.
I thought of that as well.
Because he would be linked to Dracula and he would be a well-known, or at least someone in the support group or someone somewhere would say, you mean like in the book? But nobody mentions it. They just skim over it. And they bring it up, though, because at the beginning, they put them together. They make Renfield, I think that's Jonathan Harker that Dracula's actually talking to in the short clip, right? In the original movie, but they make it Renfield, don't they? When he's on the stairs in the black and white.
No, it's Renfield.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, it is Harker. You're right. I think you are right. So I take it as, they're both Universal films, right? The 1931 film and this are both Universal. So they exist in the same universe. So the people in this 2023 film have not seen the 1931 film because it's not a film, it's the world they live in, right? Because they're in the same universe.
But they know who Dracula is.
They do, I assume, from the novel.
Okay. It was just a bit of a disconnect. It's not a big deal. And it didn't even bother me. I was thinking about it later. Like, why don't they know who? No one in all of New Orleans, which is a creepy place to live, like people who live
don't
there.
Know who Renfield is, but when they say Dracula, they know who that is.
Yes.
Right.
Just was a little bit of a hiccup to me. Would you like to hear my 16-year-old's review?
Absolutely, Karen.
So we're driving back and I said, I have to do a review of this film. Why don't you tell me your review of this film? It was succinct. He just said, blood. So be prepared for blood.
Okay. There is a lot of blood. So that was the review of a 16-year-old blood. I have a couple more here, Karen. Would you like to hear them? Some actual critics' reviews.
Critics Corner. Let's hear it.
First one I have here is from the New York Times, April 13th, 2023. So they saw the advanced screening. And as always, I'm going to paraphrase. It reads, Count Dracula has been dead for so long and gone through so many iterations, exotic, satanic, romantic, that it's almost surprising there's any juice left in the thirsty old boy. Yet here he is again, resurrected by a glorious, vamping Nicolas Cage, swinging a cape, baring his fangs, and stealing his every scene. The Count is playing second banana in Renfield, but he's nevertheless a main attraction in this cheerfully disposable entertainment, which perfectly understands that sometimes all you want from a movie is 93 minutes of well-wrought absurdity. Genre movies, even a hybrid like Renfield, which like so many movies now effectively becomes a superhero movie, depend on conventions. What matters is how they're worked, tweaked, recast. They have loaded the movie with other familiar fixings too. Gangsters, corrupt cops, a dead parent, truckloads of corpses. But for the most part, they've done so with an insistently light, at times surprisingly warm touch. Like Cage's Dracula, who lights the darkness with great delicacy, a sharply honed, knowing smile, and a voice that purrs only to roar, the filmmakers are having fun, not world building and myth making. That's from the New York Times.
Yeah, I think they're right. I think it's just everyone who's making the film looks like they're having fun making the film. It kind of plays like a passion project for someone, and they're just having a good time. And you feel that when you're watching it. And I like that they said warmth. That's a good word. That's kind of what I couldn't describe between Awkwafina and Nicholas Hoult, those two characters. There's a warmth there. I like that word for them.
The next one I have here, Karen, is from RogerEbert.com. He was no longer with us, but he still has writers on his website. And this one is by a critic named Christy Lemire or Lemire, Lemire, from 4/14/23, the day the film was released. Nicolas Cage as Dracula is exactly as delightful, deliriously over the top as you'd want him to be in Renfield. Cage's performance, a supporting turn since this movie is truly about Dracula's titular underling, remains consistently entertaining even when the film as a whole is less so. As Renfield, Nicholas Hoult serves as an amusing straight man, adorably flustered in a vintage Hugh Grant sort of way, Karen.
Ah, see, I wasn't the only one.
With flashes of assertiveness when his character is called upon to kick ass. And he has to do that a lot. Renfield mixes understated comedy with insanely graphic violence in a way that's too cartoonish to be shocking or scary. But Chris McKay's film, from a script by Ryan Ridley and Robert Kirkman, who wrote The Walking Dead, by the way, undermines all that enjoyment with supporting players and subplots that aren't nearly as compelling. With this cast and this concept, there is a ton of potential here. The knowing meta-exploration of Dracula lore is often quite clever, and Renfield can be extremely entertaining in sporadic bursts, meaning the film Renfield, but examining it in the sun's harsh light causes it to shrivel to dust. So I don't think she liked it as much as we did, but we didn't really love it either. So
no, but I think if you go in knowing it's pure entertainment, I mean, what do you expect from a movie like this?
Yeah, it is. It becomes like a New York Times guy. It becomes a superhero movie, an action, adventure, superhero film.
But at least with different characters.
All right, Karen. I did check the show times at the theater I went to see it, and it is still showing this coming weekend. It's got 2 showings on Saturday, 2 showings on Sunday, and it has 3 showings at the beginning of next week. So it may be sticking around for another week or so. And I'm sure later in the summer, it'll be in the drive-ins and things like that. And second run
The
theaters.
drive-ins.
Yeah, there's still drive-ins, Karen.
Yeah, because that's where people are going to see it. I would see
they
it
will.
if you have a chance.
When was the last time you went to the drive-in, Karen?
I don't even want to say. It's been so long.
Okay, did you have to sneak in the trunk?
No, I never had to ride in the trunk.
Okay, good. I didn't either.
I would see it in the theater if you can. If you can't, when it comes out on cable or satellite, whatever you call it now. Streaming. It's worth a watch.
It is.
I think
it would be better in the theater just because of the sound and everything.
Yes. If you're a Nicolas Cage fan, he does not disappoint.
Yeah, he's good. So 3 cocktails, Karen?
Yeah, there's 2 things. There was a special drink that went along with this movie.
I was going to ask you.
I didn't see it until I was on the way out. I don't think
they had it?
They had it, but the bar wasn't open when we went in. I think it only opens for the evening films. So when we were leaving, the bartender was back there and it was there. So they had it.
The theater I went to had beer and it had like a margarita machine or something. And that was pretty much it.
Oh, no, the sign was there. So if you did have that drink, I would love to know if you liked it and what you think was in it.
Do you know what it's called, Karen?
Of course I know what it was called. It's called Unholy Water.
Unholy Water. Okay. I was going to ask you if you had it or your theater had it.
An eternity of serving evil calls for a drink. It has tequila in it, so I bet it's good. And also, if anyone knows how to pronounce the name of the actress who played Bella Francesca Lobo, please let me know. I feel terrible that I butchered her name. I apologize for that.
Yeah, apparently it's at AMC. The Unholy Water is at AMC theaters. I assume that's where you saw it.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we give it 3 cocktails. I mean, I think it's worth it seeing in the theater, especially if you go to a matinee. I mean, it's cheap enough.
If you like popcorn.
Yeah.
It's a good date.
My wife ate all the popcorn. I didn't get any, Karen.
Oh, that sucks.
I didn't want any, but I expected when she bought popcorn, there would be some left because typically there is, but no, she ate it all.
Good for her. That's the way to enjoy the movie experience.
Yes. So let us know if you agree, disagree. If you saw the film, what you liked, what you didn't like.
And if you had the drink and what you liked and didn't like. I would love to know.
The drink? What did you say had in it?
Tequila.
Oh, then you would like it, Karen.
Yes, I would.
You would like it better than I would.
Maybe I'll just go to the theater and have one.
Yeah, you could do that. You don't have to buy a ticket to stand in the theater, the lobby. Yeah, just go to get yourself your own holy water and go to the arcade. Oh, get you some fried dough while you're at it.
They don't have that.
They don't?
Or an arcade.
Okay, ours does. Ours has both of those, but no unholy water. We had beer and margaritas or daiquiris, but that was it. All right, Karen. Anything else?
Go support the movies.
Yeah.
And please drink responsibly.
Yes.
Thanks so much for listening. Want to keep in touch? Check out our website, scaryspirits.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Scary Spirits Podcast. Find us on YouTube at Scary Spirits Podcast. If you have questions or comments, you can email us at info@scaryspirits.com. To help us grow the podcast, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We really do appreciate your support. And as always, please drink responsibly.